the Egg Bowl is among us. I wonder if there's anybody really talking about the game this week with everything going on with Lane Kiffin. Joe, the real question is this Ole Miss team going to show up for their head coach in the Egg Bowl? That's the question going into this preview. What does our good friends over at FanDuel think? That's the number one thing I want to know. But number two, what do you think?
Ole Miss is a 7.5-point favorite over at FanDuel. Blake, I don't think that – I think it would be naive to just completely move past the obvious narrative with this. How distracted is Ole Miss with the Lane Kiffin coaching situation? How distracted are they with the coaching search? It was brought up in Ross Dellinger's article that it is notable the impact that it has had on the team. Blake, I think that we have to factor that into this game. And I factored in when Lane Kiffin was up for the Auburn job and he was considering leaving for Auburn back in 2022 when they lost to Mississippi State when Mike Leach was there, 24-22. Now, this is not the Mike Leach team. This Mississippi State team is not as competitive as that team, but they're scrappy. They're better than last year. They have had spurts in which they have been explosive on offense. They've also had spurts where they've been extremely inconsistent, and they have an awful, awful offensive line. Blake, I don't think that Mississippi State has the firepower to pull off this upset. I do not think that they have the offensive line to protect Blake Shapen. I do not think that they can get this job done. I just don't. But with everything that's going on and knowing how this could potentially impact the mental state of the team, this is another game that's very easy to predict that absolutely will be close.
You know, I've been thinking about this all week. And a lot has come out in reference to, man, Ole Miss is going to be distracted. This whole Lane Kiffin thing is going to play to them. They're not going to play that well. Mississippi State could upset them. All of this stuff. I think it's going to motivate them just as much. They have a chance to go to the playoff. They have a chance to do something that has not been done at that school ever. They have a chance to go out there and rewrite history for a school that has quite frankly been the bottom feeder for a long time. You know, we talk about stories, Joe, during NIL. We talk about stories about more parity. Ole Miss gets that chance. Vanderbilt gets that chance too. Who would have ever thought 3 years ago that I would come in here and say, Ole Miss is going to be not only a bona fide playoff contender, they might be a bona fide national title contender considering how the seeding happens. Joe, what happens if they kind of get in that Penn State realm of last year and they have a G5 team and maybe a Big 12 team, and you sit there and you say to yourself, well, man, if you win both of those games, you get into the Final Four. I look at this situation and say to myself, you could do something that no one in your school's history ever imagined. Screw everything else that's going on. So to Winadad Chambliss, to Keywan Lacey, to everybody inside that locker room, it is time to put your mouthpiece in, buckle up your chin strap, and go knock a motherfucker out. Because we keep talking about all of these different things when it comes to, oh my God, the game has changed. You know what hasn't changed? Joe, that locker room hadn't changed. What makes football great hasn't changed. Ole Miss, go out there, buckle up your chin strap, and go knock somebody out. Because the bottom line is you could do something that no one imagined you could do. Now go do it. Screw what's going on with Lane. Screw what your AD says. Screw anything. It is us against the world. Now go take it. You got your offensive coordinator that will still be there. Pete Golding will still be there. Go dominate them. You want to make a statement to the committee? Oh, if Lane Kiffin's gone, Joe, they might move Ole Miss back in the rankings. You go bust their ass. Don't give them a choice. Leave no doubt, as they say, remember the Titans. Run it up, Herman. Leave no doubt. I'm tired of hearing about this Ole Miss team. You go out there and you take it to somebody. Now, that's not an analysis. That's for all of the Ole Miss media to put it in your hype video. I know what I'm doing here. Go beat their ass.
Well, first of all, the social team at Ole Miss is not going to do that after all of the lobbying you have done over the past couple of weeks for Lane Kiffin to end up at LSU. But here's the thing, Blake.
Well, you say that. I also said Bama's offensive line was softer than Swiss cheese, and they made the whole hype video about us.
That's true. Blake, everything you just said is fine and dandy in a fairy tale. But the problem is, Blake, is
you
that
let me go for 4 minutes only for you to call it a fairy tale. I didn't get you hyped up.
You got me fired up, Blake. But here's the thing, though. I don't know if it's possible to really fire up what's going on in this locker room. Blake, being in a locker room is a complicated dynamic. When you don't know about the future of what's happening with your head coach, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of doubt. Guys start talking. Some guys might be bought in and say, you know what, screw it, we're just going to finish the year. Other guys are going to be negative, and that negativity spreads. I'm not trying to call out and say that Ole Miss is flawed or they got a toxic locker room. That's not what I'm saying.
You've just hated on Ole Miss all year.
No, okay, now you're just – that's not the case. I think that, Blake, imagine showing up to practice and all of last week – the guy who's supposed to be leading you, the guy who's been the reason that you've made it this far, doesn't essentially think that you're good enough to stay. He thinks that he's better than you. That's how I think a lot of guys would feel about this. And I think there's a reason why Ross Dellinger put that in his article, because I think that there is truth to that. Maybe it's only 10 guys, but 10 guys spreads. I have a little bit of fear here.
10 guys spreads.
You know what I meant. I hope they're not doing that. I hope they're not doing that in the locker room.
You know, look, man, 10 guys are spreading.
I hope that's not happening in the locker room. To get specific with this game, though, Blake, there is a clear advantage knowing that Ole Miss's offense has been as explosive as it has been this year, going up against a Mississippi State defense that is, quite frankly, near the bottom statistically, especially in their run defense, 126 in EPA per rush. One thing, though. You know who's 127th in that category?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss
is what I don't understand. Can you explain this to me? Because we've had this argument, and I'm really asking for an explanation. Okay, I'm with you there. But they're middle of the pack in the country in run defense from a yardage overall per game standpoint. I get the attempts. What I'm saying is, yes, the yardage on that is fine, but when you look at the entire game, they're 53rd. Do you understand what I'm asking?
I understand that the reason why I prefer EPA, because when we're talking about total yardage, the context of a season, you might face a team that runs the ball 40 times. I'm using extremes here. You might face a team that runs the ball 10 times. A team might statistically do well because the teams that they're facing just aren't running the ball that much, or for the vast majority, they face teams that don't effectively run the ball. EPA does a better job of factoring in when a team runs the ball that they're facing, do they produce successful plays when they're not supposed to? Do they allow opposing teams to produce big plays on the ground? Is just the very simple way that I look at it. Are they susceptible to keep being gashed? So they might, in certain situations, be good at preventing a lot of yards. If they're poor in the EPA per rush category, it means that they're getting blown up for big plays. So when you face a team that can run the ball like Mississippi State, that's what factors in.
But it also tells me that if you have that big play on that one attempt, but the whole yardage standpoint is it's more here or there, but they're massive runs. Does that make sense? Because from a total yardage standpoint, well, I mean, Joe, they're top 30 defense in the country.
Mississippi State is or Ole Miss is?
Ole Miss is. They're 30th in the country in total defense. Their secondary is 22nd in the country in passing yards allowed. The truth of the matter is, yeah, I get what you're saying there. Have we been a little bit fugazi about how good this Ole Miss defense might be?
Well, this is what when we look at the specific context of games that they've had, Blake, I look back at some of their more troubling games. Georgia is the most specific one with all the big run plays that they gave up. Like, that's the one that really is stuck in my head that they gave up as
But this
many
ain't
big runs.
Georgia. But this ain't Georgia.
I know, which is why I
we're
don't think the
taking a
Mississippi
top
State win.
4 team against I get it. Okay, look, I don't know what to say about this game because listen, I try to give Ole Miss a pep talk here in the beginning of this. I just don't know how it plays out. If it plays out normal, I know. Look, there's not another game in college football that's more toxic. Everybody wants to say Ohio State, Michigan. People want to say the Iron Bowl. BS. The most toxic relationship of a game that happens in the country to me is the Egg Bowl. Joe, the things that happen in the Egg Bowl could go into the Hall of Fame. The Egg Bowl should just all be in the Hall of Fame every single year. How good of a coach is Lane Kiffin when he's there? Did something happen on Friday morning on game day where they say, hey, Lane Kiffin is accepting a job to Florida or accepting a job to LSU, and these guys get wind of it, and they're like, yeah, okay, screw this guy. To your point, there is the opposite side of that. If the actual team that we know to be just shows up, Joe, I don't know if Mississippi State can keep up. That's the part for me. Like, I look at this and say, eventually, Ole Miss is going to run him out of the building. I think Chambliss has already done the unthinkable. I think he's going to do the unthinkable yet again. I think I do think they're going to come to play. Everybody's telling me no. Don't buy it. I'm going to go with my gut on this one. I think the real Ole Miss shows up for this one. Maybe after that, I don't know. But Lane is still technically there. I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give him hope here. In reference to Mississippi State, when I look at this, Joe, you got to run the football to your point. This team, that's their biggest weakness so far. You like to do it. You got to hit some of these explosive plays if you're Blake Shapen. Get Thompson the ball down the field, and let's end it.
Yeah, ultimately, I've got full faith that Ole Miss has every reason to win this game. If they're locked in, they're focused, there is a separation gap. I think that Kawan Lacey is going to pop off. He's going to do his thing. He's going to be too much for Mississippi State's defense to be able to slow him down. And we have seen numerous times this year where they have had issue after issue at trying to stop elite athletes like Kawan Lacey. I think that this is going to be an easy game for them. They're going to be able to control the time of possession, the pace of the game, and it should be in and out. It just all comes down to how locked in are they? How does this week of preparation go? You mentioned is there a rumor that leaks before the game? Because we've seen that happen time after time in the sport. No matter how patient people want to be, something always gets out at the worst possible time. We'll see what transpires here, but I'm kind of rooting for the fact that this game does have a nice layer of toxicity to it, more than it usually does.
Coaches got fired because players peed on a pylon and then got them back and they missed an extra point. Hashtag Elijah Moore. We saw a fat guy recover a fumble, and while they showed the sideline, the man is laying there waving at the camera. This is by far the most toxic. And Joe, all right, don't tell some of my relatives this. I will never miss an Egg Bowl, ever. Ever. It will be on the main TV this Saturday. The main or Friday. The main TV. It is that fun of a game. So I'm going to take Ole Miss to win. I'm going to take them to cover. And I think they get the job done here.
I agree with you. I can totally see a world where Ole Miss covers, and I think that they will be able to keep them at bay. We still don't have the rankings, by the way, so we could probably just jump to Tennessee Vandy.
Boy,
they're doing all this BS, and then the rankings are going to be like slightly different from last year. There's going to be like one small movement, so it's probably not the end of the world.
Okay, well, committee, you continue to suck. By the way, Hunter Yurchek needs to be fired.
As the committee chair?
Yeah, well, as Arkansas's AD.
Yeah, they lost out on Eric Morris to OK State. I don't know if that's who they were competing with or if they were even in contention, but to let that happen, that's bad. Unless they get someone big.
Should we get to that? Do you want to get to that at all? Do you want to just do like 5 minutes on it?
If we have time, I do think that Tennessee Vandy is incredibly important.
Okay, let's get to that.